Hello, you're watching QTV. Welcome once again to the Week in Review. I am your host, Alhagie Daramy, and as ever, I have a guest who's going to go through some of the big stories from the week and analyze them in some detail. And this week, I have none other than Mr. Sidi Cisse. Sidi, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Alhagie. Thanks so much for having me.
And thanks for coming along.
Thank you.
Those of you who are regular watchers of QTV, of course, will recognize Sidi from the program Kachadullah. As I say, this is the Week in Review, and the name says it all. We look back over the last 7 days, and we review some of the stories that we've seen, and we go into some detail in analyzing and discussing them. And so, as they say, without further ado, let us look at the first story on our list. And COVID-19 dominated our lives, and it's dominated the news. And it's actually dominated what is happening with education. And so let's take a quick look at this clip, and when we come back, we'll delve into the story and discuss what it's all about. Have a quick look at this.
Despite these difficulties, we are strongly convinced that the benefits of this current program far outweighs the demerits. We are conscious of the fact that the current initiative is not a perfect strategy, at least everyone would agree that some form of learning has taken place in the past 21 days. Contrary to the wide-held rumor that $35 million have been given to the ministry, I want to state that to date, no single budget has been received by this ministry towards the fight of COVID-19. The source of funding. This activity is funded under Component 2, which is the support to quality education of the current World Bank project, which is managed by the ministry. You may wish to know that certain activities were meant to be carried under the project during the COVID period, but could not naturally happen due to the banning of public gathering and close of schools. We therefore had to engage the bank to shift funds from such activities to this initiative.
There we had it. An official from the Ministry of Education talking about something that's quite new for this country, which is lessons being given on radio and television. Sidi, what were your thoughts, first of all, when you heard that this was going to be what was going to be done?
I mean, when I heard about the lessons on radio and TV, I was like, okay, how are you going to do it? Because one would have thought, when it comes to curriculum,
sure.
How are you going to deliver this curriculum? One and two, we got, like they've said earlier, over 600 kids, who are impacted because of this close of schools.
That's right.
They are in different stages. We have the lower basic, the upper
right.
basics, the senior secondary school, the college, and the university.
That's right.
My thought is, how are you going to do it? And again, the electricity problem, the reliability in the Gambia.
Not everybody has TV,
not everybody has
radio.
TV, not everybody has radio. So it's like, okay, let's see how they're going to do it. I saw what they're doing. Good initiative,
sure.
But I would have thought in the 21st century, in the Gambia today, these things could have been done. Of course, sure. COVID-19 came at a time where no one is prepared.
It's kind of pushed us into it.
Pushed into it. Yeah. But it had found other countries who are on the path of, when it comes to IT,
sure.
when it comes to technology.
Sure.
You would have thought most schools, would have IT units. And with those IT units, they would have developed certain apps,
sure.
And that they can have learning from teacher to student in your home.
In fact, most of our youngsters have apps, but they're all for nonsense.
The WhatsApp apps and all those things.
Entertainment
and stuff like that.
Sure.
So you would have thought, by now in the Gambia, each school would have a unit of IT,
sure.
internet, electricity, and kids will use their smartphones, some who are fortunate to have laptop and iPads would have these programs, and it will be interactive between a teacher
sure.
and the student.
Indeed.
And there will be not a lot that will be lost. But if you looked at the 21 days lockdown that we had with schools,
sure.
I mean, they have lost over 70 hours of teaching time.
Because 21 days, 5 of which are weekends, so we're talking about 16 days of school, of actual teaching.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of time that's lost.
It's a lot over 70 hours.
Yeah, sure.
And again, the madrasas, for example,
quite. They're not being catered for.
They're being catered for. So these are things that I thought,
sure.
Maybe they could have looked at it. And, I mean, are they having feedbacks from kids or parents how this thing is helping kids at home? And again, we have seen a lot of kids in the streets.
Sure.
Some are selling wanjo, water, and it's like, these are the kids who are supposed to be in school.
Yes.
They are in school. They are not in school, but they are out in the street. Some are playing football. You walk around the parks, everything's going on. So actually, I mean, it's rather unfortunate. The initiative is great, but again, I think it's sort of more collective, involvement of, parent and the ministry and the schools as well should have engaged things better than this.
I mean anybody watching this program will think, oh, look, here he goes again, because one of the things that I've been banging on about is that this COVID-19 is actually forcing us to look anew at everything.
Absolutely.
It has altered societies across the world, not just in the Gambia. But one of the things that I think it's now forcing us, is shaming us in a way. Things like, hand washing and sort of general hygiene, civic hygiene, but also things like the use of solar energy. And I keep quoting this fact. The fact that you have a town in southern Germany that runs on solar for 50% of the year. What the hell is the excuse for Africa not to have solar? Why have we not looked into it? It's only now that, the renewable energy ECOWAS project is now being set up and being based in Cape Verde to look at it, because Cape Verde is so far ahead of the curve in that sense. They expect to be, in about 5 years' time, 100% reliant on solar and renewable energy. But, I mean, you've kind of touched on it yourself, saying that, great initiative, but, why, some people say we're being clever, saying, why didn't we look at this before? None of us expected COVID-19. But really, I think what you've said is that there are things that we should have been looking at.
Absolutely.
We have IT companies, we have apps and so on. Why have we not tried to use those apps, before? For purposes such as
actually been using the IT people outside. I'm saying each secondary school, each school should have an IT department. It's the same in the 21st century. When the world is evolving around technology, you can go to schools in this country and there is no single computer.
I mean,
there is no single lab when it comes to computing.
Exactly, and what, twice in the last year or so on QTV, we have featured young children from the Gambia who've gone to robotics competitions and defeated bigger nations. These are world competitions, and they've come out with a gold medal. So we have the talent here, and people, but we're not using it. And so, I guess this is something that...
Unfortunately for many of those kids are coming from the private schools. It's no excuse that the government too cannot do, in terms of, furnishing those schools with some of these things is very paramount. But the other thing that one need to look at, especially the Ministry of Education right now, we are talking about hours that are missing. What are they doing? They must be trying to be proactive now, preparing themselves. What sort of extra class is going to happen? Are they going to go in weekends? So these are all things that they should be preparing themselves now, because it's here. We cannot wait till, COVID-19 is over and kids are back to school. They do the Monday to Friday, the less hours, and go. When they're going to catch up on their curriculum? There are exams that have not been taking place. What is going to happen? We don't know when this is going to end. So those who are supposed to do their exams, what's going to happen with them? We know the international body, the WIC, probably there's, there will be talks about that, what's going to happen. But our internal exams, our grading system, kids moving from class to class, these are all things that they need to look at properly.
Okay, well, you heard it there, people from the ministry. These are things you need to look at properly. And, of course, the ministry have already said at the end of this week, just ending, by the 10th, so by sort of Friday, they were saying that they were going to assess the first phase. And I guess by next week's program, we would have seen what their assessment has been, and we might discuss it then. But I think CD has some good food for thought for them there, and let's hope they take note of that. And now on to our next story. With the fact that we keep hearing this statistic, 75% of the people who work in the Gambia are involved in some way in agriculture. And because of what's happened with COVID-19, there have been worries about what was going to happen to the farmers and for the farmers. Well, let's take a look at this clip, and when we come back, it might give us a sense of some possible good news.
We have just started delivering that, which is 2,000 metric tons of compound fertilizer. We anticipate to receive a next batch of 2,000 in the next 2 weeks. And then the balance will be received before the end of May.
There, 2,000 tons of fertilizer, quite a significant amount. CD, I was saying that, so many people dependent on agriculture in this country. It's a good thing. But you and I know that with what's happened with COVID-19, it's thrown everything up in the air. So is it a good thing?
Anyway, yeah, a good thing in the sense we are getting fertilizer coming.
Sure.
But we have seen the last rainy season.
Exactly.
The rain was very bad.
Very bad.
Even if it was not COVID-19, you know, there will be hunger.
Yeah, they started late.
Yeah, it started
very
late.
A month late, and then it was very bad when it came.
Very bad. And so whether it was COVID-19, you know, the expectation would have been there will be hunger in the interior of the country. Yeah. I mean, that's a fact. But we need to look at things here properly. Right now, we've just seen this clip saying 2,000 metric ton.
Yes,
for some who doesn't understand what is a metric ton, let's simplify it in this sense. You times it by 20 and it will give you the number of bags
that's right.
that it is.
Yes.
It's fertilizer.
Yeah, correct.
But we have this year and year of fertilizers coming in the country.
That's right.
But what is sad, and you know this is sad for everybody, is that our farming in the Gambia, in terms of crops, the 7 basic crops, the groundnut, the rice, the millet, you name the 7 basic crops, they have not, in terms of production, every year is gone down.
It's down, yeah, quite.
So the issue what the Minister of Agriculture needs to do is to understand, however they looked at it, why that our production in crops is going down. If you look even last year, for example, we had 2 different package of fertilizer.
Yes.
One was the Japanese grant.
Right.
The Japanese grant, which came in last year, was 600 metric ton. You know, that we had from the Japanese people as a grant to the Gambia, and they were selling them for 700 per bag.
Right.
And the GGC had 5,000 metric ton.
Right.
Okay. When you talk to farmers, they will tell you, yes, I mean, the price tag they put on the fertilizers was great.
Reasonable,
Reasonable, but the places where they were selling these fertilizers were far away from them. So you can buy your fertilizer, a bag for 700, but before you get to your farm, you are paying 200 extra. So you talk about 900, 1,000. So these are things that they need to look at. And also to look at the production, for example. We talk about groundnut, for example. You looked at the last couple of years, when you come to groundnut, our production has been very, very bad. You looked at 2018, we had 19,110 metric tons of groundnut. And when you looked at 2019, we had 13,664 metric tons of groundnut. And then this is what has been purchased in the country. And then this year, we had 2,000 metric tons of groundnut. So it's like something is not right here.
Something's not right.
Okay? The fertilizer is coming, but the produce is not there. What's happening?
Yes, a good point to end on.
So it's so important to know that the importance of groundnut in this country, what we can do with groundnut, turn the groundnut into crude oil that we can sell out. We can have a refining here to turn the groundnut into oil, and we can also sell the groundnut cake. We would get a lot of money, create jobs.
Yes,
but
at the moment
it's going down.
It's going down.
So I guess the minister is listening. We'll find out.
Minister, I hope you're listening. And one of the things I have to say is that I'm glad that CD didn't even mention rice, because in 1969 we were producing more rice than we are now, and that's quite shocking. So I'm glad we didn't even go there.
Absolutely.
And now on to our next story. And again, about funding for COVID-19, $500 million was mentioned. And it's elicited a lot of discussion. Let's take a quick look at this clip where there's some explanation about what is going to go on. Join us after this.
This $500 million is available and is ready for disbursement. I think what is clear from the minister's statement is that despite the emergency, despite the sentiments, we are still sensitive to make sure the fiscal discipline we adhere today more than ever.
But I assure you, honorable members, and I assure the people of this country, I think at the Ministry of Health is a different thing altogether now. When the head is correct, the plate should be correct, and I think the head is correct.
A special project account has been opened for the transfer of the $500 million. The minister also reveals that for accountability, a committee comprising different ministries and the National Audit Office has been established to be in charge of disbursement of money.
Every request goes through them. The disbursements, all these things go through them. Now, I said to a group of people, I said to the people who are responsible, who are making the list for these allowances, I said to them, I, the Minister of Health, I don't want any allowance, I don't want any honorarium, I don't want any butut, I'm doing sacrifice for my...
And I think that was a good point just to fade that out. It was the minister saying that he doesn't want a butut, and there was a reason why he was saying all of that, CD. People were very excited by this figure, 500 million, and there's been a lot of talk about what is going to be spent on, and there'd been a supposed leak from within the Ministry of Health saying that people had been kind of plotting about how they were going to get their hands on this money and pocket it, basically. I mean, we've discussed this previously, but I mean, you saw the ministers there try and give some sort of explanation. I mean, were you sold on the explanation? First of all, that the money's there and it's about to use, but they haven't even called upon it yet. Yeah,
I think one thing, like you said earlier, what the minister is trying to explain. We had the president said 500 million.
Yes.
Okay. This thing, this 500 million is not something that has been budgeted for. We had the budget here.
That's right.
A few months ago. It was never allocated for, say, 500 million for COVID-19.
Indeed.
Okay. So I was baffled, to be honest, when I had the president saying 500 million. So my first question is, if Mr. Barrow is watching, President Barrow, where is the 500 million from?
Sure.
That's one thing.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I have not seen any program, what I would say, the costing program for this COVID-19.
Sure.
And that includes everything that is happening. You are sending people to go home. You're asking shops to close, non-essential shops. Sure. You're asking taxi drivers to reduce the passengers they're carrying and all that. But who is going to look after them?
Indeed. I mean, and in terms of the health minister, and as I said, his attempted explanation there, one of the criticisms that he's faced is that the first time he came out and he spoke about, where this money, what the money was going to be spent on, he talked about posters, billboards, radio programs, and then subsequently he's kind of sort of clarified that, because amongst other things, they're going to buy 33 ambulances. Now, you would have thought that would have been the headline of what you were going to say this money is going towards. And yet it was only after people pushed and pushed. I don't want to criticize him, but does it show that he's not a good politician or what? I'm not sure what
that's what I said in the earlier statement, that we have not have any costing. Any strategic plan. The Minister of Health can say, okay, this is their intervention, this is what it's going to do, this. But the government, as an institution...
How did they come up with that figure?
How did they come up with a figure? And have they come up with a strategic plan? How they're going to deal with this COVID-19? Because we must bear in mind, COVID-19 is not just the health.
Right.
It's social, economical, everything.
Across the board.
So you just can't wake up, we got 500 million and that's it. Why is the 500 million from? And what is it going to be spent on? When I had the minister talking about posters and getting the Kanyalan groups in our villages, hang on a minute. The last couple of weeks, I've been watching QTV. I call it CTV. It's COVID TV. It's everything is about COVID-19, COVID-19, COVID-19. The musicians there, the rappers, everyone is doing. So every single Gambian, I believe today, whether you are in denial or not, you know there is something called coronavirus and there is something called COVID-19. And we know we don't have the capacity. The fact is, the ministry have not trained enough people, and they can just try to wrap things under the wolf and so on. But the reality is, they have not come and tell us how many number of people have they trained that are going to go out there and protect the people.
And this is something that was raised. Funny enough, I just left the office to go to get something during lunch, and I bumped into a friend, and she said, you need to ask the ministry. Have they trained the doctors and nurses to look after COVID-19 patients?
They don't.
And she said, I suspect they haven't.
They have not. I'm telling you, with even PPPs, I mean, they have not been taught. If they have taught, maybe a handful.
A few.
Okay, but we are talking about something that can go out of
explanation.
So they need to train these people, even how to wear the PPEs, how to take care of, how to look after the patient. All these things are very important. And we know they come out and say we have contact tracers and all this. How many of them are there? How are they finding their ways to this place? And I understand these people are using local transport to go and look for a contact, for example.
That's right.
You gonna come and see me? You are using local transport. You can come with the you can come with the virus to me.
Quite.
And until when we are recording our last program on Kachadula, we had somebody from the Ministry of Health. I put it to him that nobody has ever received a penny. All these people who are out in the field to date, and he confirmed that. So 500 million is sitting somewhere, we can see it, it's not doing the job.
Quite.
Okay, you want to get 500, you want to get 500, you want to get how many?
33 ambulances.
33 ambulances or whatever it is.
And I think one of the reasons why I chose the clip is because, you know, I guess we have to wrap up this conversation and move on. But one of the reasons I chose the clip was because I don't think either minister explained in a satisfactory manner where this money has come from, where it's going, and what it's going to be spent on. And I guess this one will run and run, and I suspect we'll come to this subject again. But thanks for that insight. And once again, I hope the minister's listening, and I hope the president is listening. And
they need to get their act together and come up with something comprehensive and very transparent. And in fact, even the Jack Mao items that came, we don't know what is inside. Until today, we cannot do our own tests. We have to rely on MRC.
Yes, and then send it to Senegal.
I mean,
come on.
Ministers,
I hope you're watching and listening.
They got to.
And now, as I said at the beginning of the show, COVID-19 is dominating our lives. And here's a story which is slightly unusual, but it's still to do with COVID-19. Take a look at this.
We know that there are gaps in having to sustain or feeding those that are actually doing the hardest job, and they are actually in their guard posts. They cannot leave their guard posts because the manpower is limited because of the numbers of the COVID allowed numbers, which is below 10. So in that manpower, you don't expect people to be actually leaving their guard posts or their stations to go and search out for food when food is actually scarce as at now. Not many food vendors are around, and not many food sellers are around, or food production centers are around within the areas. So as an association, the Gambia Chef Association, we thought we could create a room whereas we can feed our soldiers. Soldiers not meaning the soldiers with the weapons, but those on the front line are our soldiers because they're standing for us.
Soldiers on the front line, not with weapons, but they're standing for us. Now, CD, you heard there, and I have to admit, one of the reasons I chose, I quite like this story, because I think most of us hadn't even thought of things like that. The fact that many places now where you'd go and buy Afra on the street, or they're gone.
They're gone.
And so these people who are actually manning the borders, they have to eat, of course.
Absolutely.
Who's feeding them? What were your thoughts when you saw that?
It's a great initiative.
Sure.
Definitely, they've done wonders to do this. But we come back to the same thing. That is the operational. I mean,
why did you take the Chefs Association?
Why do you take
why hadn't government thought of how to feed these people?
Because the people out there, they're either from the police or from immigration or from the border agencies and others. They need to know what they're doing.
Sure.
They need to have a program, a concrete program that you are sending people out there who are going to protect our borders. They must look after.
Yeah, quite.
You must look after them. Yeah. I mean, it's not a question. There's no rocket science.
It isn't.
We saw when the 3 years Jodna was happening, they mobilized all forces, joint operation, and running over the place. This is worse than that.
Absolutely.
Is it because the presidency was threatened then? That's why they put all that together? We need the same participation, the same involvement of everybody, hands on the deck to help the people. Their duty is to protect life and property. And this is life at stake right now.
Absolutely.
So definitely, I don't want us to live here and tomorrow somebody else is giving them food. It should come from the various departments who should cater for it. They should do it. It's a must.
Absolutely.
And it's non-compromising.
Well, I think that's non-compromising just about sums it up. It's a must. And I think most people, most thinking people will think it's a must. And now let's take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we look at some more stories, including one about the Ombudsman's appointment. Quick break. Join us after the break.
Are you worried about going out to buy cash power and staying safe at the same time? Are you worried about standing in long queues outside when it comes to buying cash power? Well, worry no more, because with QCell's Q Power service, you get to enjoy the convenience of buying your cash power with your mobile phone in the comfort of your house. The most convenient way to buy cash power is with QCell. Dial *363# to register your meter and enjoy the convenience of QCell's Q-Power service. For more information, call customer care on 111. Stay home, stay safe, stay clean. QCell. Sunyubus. We innovate, others follow.
You building a home or refurbishing? Do you need home appliances? Look no further than Vestel. Check out our state-of-the-art refrigerators, ACs with inverter technology, ultra-high definition 4K smart TVs, washers and dryers, and home appliances ranging from kettles, toasters, vacuums, hair straighteners, and cake mixers. Vestel has an affordable and innovative solution for you. Visit our showroom today, opposite West African International School, between the Nigerian Embassy and the Gamworks building. Or you can connect with us on our Facebook page, Vestel Gambia. You can also contact us on 3456789, 7676769, better still, 7676768. We believe every home deserves Vestel.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, welcome. You're watching QTV's The Week in Review with me, your host Ari Darami, and my special guest, Sidi Cisse. And we're looking through some of the big stories of the last 7 days. Now, one of the ones that has exercised National Assembly members to a great deal has been about the appointment of a new ombudsman. Take a look at this clip, and when we come back, we'll deep dive into it.
Very much so. With the quality Bakari has, personal quality, the integrity he has, he will man this office. Because Bakari is somebody that nobody puts anything into him which is not according to the law.
Qualification for Ombudsman has to proceed with due legal process. The National Assembly members for Woolly West and Lower Badibu give their observations on Bakari Sanyang's nomination for appointment as Ombudsman. Both raised concerns that the nominee is still serving in the public service as governor of the West Coast region.
The Constitution has given the President the power, but it's the same Constitution that says that any person that holds public office is not qualified to be in the office of the Ombudsman. So here is my bone of contention, Madam Speaker.
And there you heard our National Assembly members debating the appointment or otherwise of Bakari Sanyang to be the new ombudsman. Now, Sidi, some people might say this was a bit of a futile exercise because apparently the law says if you reject the president's first nominee, you cannot reject his second one. So what was the point?
I mean, you are right. Because the exercise that actually is happening and what the president is actually doing, he is relying on Section 164 of the Constitution, Section 2, Subsection 3 of the Ombudsman Act,
yes, right,
that he has to appoint.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, but if you looked at the same section,
yes.
Section 164, Subsection 1 of the Constitution says, if the National Assembly rejects the first appointment of the president, they cannot reject the second appointment.
One. Yes,
this is Section 164, Subsection 1.
Yes.
But I mean, the exercise was there, but I think what the wise ones did say, oh, let's refer it to the special committee to look at it.
That's right.
And I think the question, the issues that they raised, which is Section 164, Subsection 4,
about whether
he has to resign from
the
position. I think that was the only thing that they have a ground on to say.
That's right.
Section 164, Subsection 4 said he has to resign.
That's right.
So that's all they have to do.
That's
because their hands are tied. They rejected Babukar Suare, so they cannot reject.
Bakari
Sanyang.
That's right. I mean, but what was interesting also is that, yes, myself and some colleagues were debating this, including on a radio show here, because they were saying that, of course, he should have resigned. I said, well, maybe supposing he'd resigned and then... but of course, he knows he wasn't...
Probably the president did not consult him that I'm going to take you to the National Assembly for an ombudsman. Maybe he's not.
Yes.
But you can see how quick it was for him to resign.
He resigned very quickly.
It's like he was already there.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably I mean, sometimes these things just actually don't add up in how we thought when you sit out there. Probably, the guy who advised the president did not tell him, you want to give this job to Bakary Sanyang, but he need to resign and stuff like that. So maybe that process too was on, because you can see the timeline when this was discussed in the assembly and when he handed over. And I understand they also got somebody there.
Absolutely, in 24 hours. But I think also what was interesting was that, yes, he resigned, but I think he probably resigned because when you listen to the debate, people said nothing but nice things about him. So even if there'd been a problem, then I think it might have made it difficult. Because if you think about it, yes, they can't reject it. But can you imagine if they had been very critical of the new appointee, and just because the law says they can't reject him, that person then got appointed, they would never live it down. The press would never let them live it down. So,
I think he was taking his time.
Yeah, quite.
To see what's happening out there before he penned his resignation.
Absolutely. So new ombudsman, if the new constitution gets accepted in its current form, it doesn't say ombudsman, it says ombudsperson. So we'll see whether he will be the new ombudsperson.
Be gender sensitive.
Absolutely, gender sensitive. And so we all know that public state of emergency was announced by His Excellency the President, and that brought with it certain things. But it also meant that there needed to be scrutiny on whether this was legal and being properly applied. Have a look at this clip, and then we come back, we'll discuss it some more.
The state of public health emergency was extended last Friday by MPs. They have approved another motion tabled to perform an oversight function on the executive during the state of public emergency and establish a special select committee to perform the task. The majority leader of the House moves the motion.
The mandate of the proposed special select committee, if approved, will perform specific tasks of oversight and monitoring of the state of public emergency as outlined under the terms of reference effective 3rd April 2020 to the end of the period of the state of public emergency.
The functions of the Special Select Committee include ensuring the implementation of the state of public emergency follows due process and that government provides the necessary mechanisms for implementing the state of public emergency regulations.
Now, a special select committee to have oversight functions of the state of emergency. CD, there needs to be such, because some of the National Assembly members had misgivings, and they actually felt that some public officials, particularly the police and the military, were kind of overstepping their sort of legal bounds of what they were allowed to do. I mean, what did you think of that?
It's a good thing, actually relying on their laws, which is the standing order. You say standing order 94, which the vice president or the minister with responsibility for finance shall at least once during each session of the assembly make an oral ministerial statement to the assembly on the implementation or monitoring of the annual budget. Okay. That's, they have powers to do that.
That's right.
And if you look forward as well, the standing order is actually saying they have the powers to do that in the follow-up section of subsection 2 of 94. My issue here is they're talking about monitoring. What are they going to monitor?
Well, apparently, when I listened to the debate, they said that certain things, for example, certain closures and certain arrests that were being made by the police were actually illegal, because apparently some of the powers they had been given should not have been given to them whilst Parliament had not been dissolved. So at the time they were given these powers, I mean, some people might think it was semantics, but some of the people who were in Parliament thought that it was right that they brought this up, that there was proper scrutiny, because they felt that it was a slippery slope. If you just say, oh, these things don't matter, where the law says, no, actually, you can only pass certain laws if Parliament is no longer in session. You can only make the sort of decree about the sort of, length of 21 days. But of course, what they were actually debating at the start of that was the president had wanted 90 days. And they knocked it down to 45.
Yes.
And so, that's what the committee...
Well, I mean, the committee actually said they're monitoring, but the president came with 90 days. Now they gave him 45 days. So state of public emergency is here. So those powers exist. The police have the right to go and do those jobs. But again, these parliamentarians, they live in the communities. Are they helping, advising, the neighborhood about when it comes to social distancing.
Sure.
I don't think it's happening.
It's not
You go
happening.
everywhere in the community, people out there socializing, attire booths are going on, playing football.
I drove by Sukuta Market. It was as thronged as ever.
When they're talking about monitoring,
Yeah.
I thought they better best go back to their various
Constituencies.
and then start telling the people
Sure.
to do the right thing, because we must bear in mind
Sure.
we don't have the capacity to deal with this virus.
Quite.
So the most important thing that we need to bear in mind is prevention.
Sure.
If powers like UK, America, Italy, Spain, you name them,
Struggling. Yeah.
we can't. So it is important for them to work on prevention, and prevention. We've just had 5 new cases,
Indeed.
just like that, from nowhere.
Absolutely,
2
overnight.
local.
Yeah, quite.
So it is important that they go out there. It's monitoring should not all end with the police closing
and-
shops.
yeah,
Go
quite.
back to your villages and your towns
And-
and try and talk to the people to respect social distancing and do the right thing.
That's
Prevention.
You know, when I was younger, you would have said to those National Assembly members, go back and educate your constituents, but now you have to say you're sensitizing them.
Yes.
So don't educate them, sensitize them. It could save their lives. Well, thank you for that, CD. Now, there was a very interesting intervention by the mayor of Banjul, and she was asking for something from government. Have a quick look at this, and you'll get it pretty quickly. Have a look at this clip.
We have a serious problem by sticking to the rule that says stay at home. People cannot stay at home when they are hungry. They cannot. And this is where the central government also will learn the importance of local government by subventing the local governments.
By subventing. We love these 19th century language. If you want to know what she means by subventing, she means government should give local government a grant. But CD, you sort of touched on it earlier when you said that there needs to be a kind of holistic plan, a strategy,
Absolutely.
effectively.
Absolutely. I mean,
and the
you have
mayor,
to-
actually, Roy Malik Lowe, has kind of touched on that, that, you know, people are not running to central government looking for you can't say just stay and do nothing.
Nothing.
How are you going to feed them? And you kind of touched on that.
She's right. She's talking about people are going there to look for food because they're hungry, stay at home. I mean, one thing is very clear as far as the local government is concerned. There is a local government act, and he has spelled it out, what the responsibility of the local authorities are and what the responsibility of the government is, in terms of what role the government have to play in implementing some of the projects of the local government and what the local government has to do as well. But we also have to bear in mind, just because you are a local government body, you know, whether it's Brikama Area Council or Banjul City Council or it's KMC, we have to ask ourselves, what are they also doing in terms of generating funds? How many stores do they have in their towns, for example, or in their markets? How many public car parks do they have? You know, these are things that they, because, you know, we have seen for many, many years, our local authorities have been transformed to political bureaus. And what they do is what they take from the market, goes into pockets, and goes into the eye companies, buy Jenny, you know, Konyi and all those, that's what is happening.
Indeed.
So, in as much as, you know, the central government needs to input the local authorities, but the local authorities must also get their act together to invest and manage the resources that they have.
I mean, one of the ones that we've been featuring quite a lot recently has been Brikama Area Council. They have a new chief executive, young guy, Jogan. He seems to be making quite an impact. And I keep saying that other people should learn from the likes of him and Bensouda. But you've kind of, again, mentioned something there about, you know, what are they doing, you know, car parks and so on. I mean, most of the markets, I live like a 2-minute walk from Old Yundum. There are no bins there. It's one of the filthiest markets in this country. I've stopped buying food there. You know, why has the council not put bins there? Why have they not put bins in every market that can be utilized? And so you said they need to get their act together.
Yeah, they need to get their act together. And look out for avenues to generate money.
Funds, yeah.
You know, take for example Serekunda, for example, the Serekunda Serejob highway,
yes.
all the way to KMC. How many taxis and cars are parked, blocking the whole road? What will stop the area council come with a strategy to do clamping on those cars, and they clamp them, take them away, find them. That's money coming in the coffers.
Absolutely.
Banjul, Brikama. There are a lot of things they can do out there to get money that comes in the council and invest it in the council and make money.
Good point.
That's very important for them to do. And I hope my sister, Roy
Malik, I hope you're watching that. So as far as CD is concerned, you're not going to be getting any subvention. Come up with money-making ideas yourselves and your colleagues in local business. Now, let's take another quick commercial break. And when we come back, again, to do with COVID-19, about foreigners who have decided to flee the Gambia. Join us after this quick break.
tey nag su street stock bi ak Inco la ka la ñu xool liggéeykat bi ak bagage Inco noo gisee bagage boo use ni
bagage bi dëgër na garanti na yaaga na ak Inco dafa mel ni yaa ngi téye àdduna si sa loxo.
non macha allah suma liggéey bi peeli Inco ak pusi Inco macha allah gaawal liggéey te da nga peel doo si soona.
ñun welda mane de bagage Inco lañ dee gën a use because moo gën a wóor.
ñun mi liggéey aluminium bagage Inco lañ dee gën a jëfoo cause mooy lu óor si ñun.
ak Inco bagage yu baax leen amee te quality lii mooy seen brand lii mooy seen kola foo mu di gis bagage bu baax rek Inco la ma ne ak Inco si nekkee private sector la government sector individual képp koo xam ne rek da nga bëgg a sampa wala welda man nga maçon nga kapinta nga kaay Inco dinañ la jaay bagage yu baax te correct te seela te bagage yooyu noonu nag dafa ànd ak garantie ak Inco aduna bi mu ngi ci sa loxo.
Little olive, little onion blanc, little mustard, little mayonnaise. Little Kitchen Express, waañ yëpp ay bànneex la.
Welcome back after that short break. And in case you've just joined us, you're watching QTV and you're watching QTV's The Week in Review with me, your host, Adi Darami, and my very special guest, Sidi Cisse. And now, I mentioned at the top of the show that COVID-19 seems to have dominated everything in our lives for the last 2-3 months. Have a quick look at this.
According to the officer commanding at the Tangier Immigration Post, Zakaria Dabo, the 3 boats were planning to land in Tangier on the 18th, 20th and the 21st of March when they were intercepted and asked to return to Senegal. It is understood that the boats were from Mbour, Senegal, a region that is hit by the coronavirus. He was speaking to a special delegation from the Gambia Immigration Department led by the Commissioner of Operations, who were embarking on an assessment tour of the country's borders and sea entry points to have first-hand knowledge of the operations being carried out by the officers stationed at these places. Dabo said in order to control the number of boats going to sea on a daily basis, they took time to register all the boats so they could keep track of their movements in case of the arrivals of a new or unregistered boat.
Some interesting points there, including the last point about the fact that all the local boats had been registered in order that they could actually keep track of them. Now, CD, the reason I wanted that shown is because what was interesting about it was that actually locals had actually tipped off the authorities that these boats were coming from Senegal, but those ones were caught. But might the word get out and people decided to land somewhere else rather than the obvious point? You mentioned Tangier and how crowded it can get there, but, you know.
I mean, they talked about registering boats.
Yeah, quite.
What will stop a boat that is registered in Tangier with the network, go to Mbour, fill that boat, with people and come back to
exactly.
and come back to Tangier.
You've been on the wiser.
So it is important that we have, the patrols of our Navy.
That's right.
We have a Navy.
Yeah,
I'm sure we do.
We do.
I mean, I'm sure we have a Navy.
Well, when they had independence, they had the Navy people marching.
Okay,
so I
so
guess
we
do
still have a Navy.
Yeah.
With all the security reforms that are happening, I don't want us to get into that. It's quite we have a Navy, and I'm sure they have their Navy boats. They should be patrolling. Because one thing that we need to be mindful of, as far as Gambia is concerned, we are surrounded three sides
by Senegal. Yeah.
There are certain villages you can have 3 to 4, 5 exits.
Absolutely.
I'll give you one village in Basse, say Sabi. 8 exit to Casamas. And you go to the Fonis, you have somewhere like Tranquil, for example.
Yeah.
You can see a house in Gambia and the bathroom is in Senegal.
Exactly.
It's in Senegal. So it is important that resources are put together to control the border.
Sure.
And I'm so, those who are listening, then they need to put their act together. I keep saying this, they need to get their act together because this is between life and death. It's
really
between
is.
life and death. We have the securities here. We have the police and, all the other, get them together, reorganize them, resource them, and they do the job. They have to do the job. You go to, for example, of late I had Banjul, the traffic, some officers are taking 2 days off and coming to work 2 days. What? We are in a national crisis. Why do a serving officer have to sit at home for 2 days and then come to work for 2 days? Where are we?
Social distancing.
No, come on. We organize them and put them out. They have to go out.
Absolutely.
And do the job.
I think so. I agree with you on that, actually. And now we're on to our final story, and you'll be pleased to know that this has absolutely nothing to do with COVID-19. What's it about? Pay attention and you'll find out.
Well, he was a man whom I could easily describe as somebody who was running Gambian football. And in this sense, I mean, there was never any person who was as much involved in financing and administrating Gambian football in the way Obi did. And this is not because he was just a patron of Walidan, the team that I always call the Manchester United of the Gambia. When Walidan was Walidan, they won almost everything that was on stake in Gambian football, thanks to Obi Conateh's commitments to the development of football.
Under his administration as president of the then Gambia Football Association, Obi managed and financed one of the country's greatest national teams between 1994 to 2001. In fact, many people are of the opinion that if he hadn't dipped into his own pocket to finance the Scorpions, during his tenure, they wouldn't have taken part in regional and continental football competitions.
You heard the people talking about Alhagie Obi Conateh. Now, CD, this is a man who I mentioned on another program. Had this not happened during the time of coronavirus, he would have had a big and possibly a state funeral. A man who did a lot for Gambian football. What are your own memories or impressions?
Definitely. I'm not the biggest football fan, but I'm fortunate to follow the life of Obi.
Sure.
It is sad that when it comes to Africa, many times we will not
celebrate
our great, our greatest people. Obi was, I would say, the father of Gambian football.
For sure.
Because not only did he contribute immensely as far as football is concerned, he had helped so many young ones to actually succeed in playing international.
Sure.
And not only that, he has also created jobs for lots of people.
Yes, he started many businesses.
Many businesses.
Sure,
I remember Fisco MP at Banjul at the time when I was going to school in Banjul.
Obi Trollers.
A lot of people who were actually playing for the team Walidan. It gives them job.
But I think the thing that might shock a lot of people in a nice way in Gambia is how respected he was in the rest of West Africa. Because, when African sort of football administration was in a bit of a mess, this is a man who was invited to Sierra Leone, to Liberia, to Ivory Coast, and even to Ghana, much bigger countries than the Gambia, to advise the administrators.
So we come back to what I said in the first place. Why is that we don't celebrate, Obi Conateh for all what he has done in this country? has done so much. He has created jobs. You know, you have employed youths, women, you know, a lot of, you know, jobs for people. And then put his, like Mr. Cham have said, put his own money in building the Gambian football, definitely. It's unfortunate we don't have many stadiums, but we should build a big stadium and name it after him.
A brilliant way to end, and I think that just about says it all. A man who deserves the ultimate respect. He really is the father of Gambian football. And just end by saying thank you, CD, for some insightful comments there on all the stories. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ade. It's a pleasure.
And a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
And so, once again, this is your host, Ade Darami, saying goodbye for this week. And join me again next week, and I'll have another guest when we'll delve into the big stories from the previous 7 days. You've been watching QTV's The Week in Review. Thanks for watching.